You know the quiet that does not bring peace, the kind that sits in the room even when the television is on and the phone scrolls like a slot machine. The silence that should soothe but instead exposes a hollow place inside the chest. You try to sleep and the night stretches like a hallway with no doors. You wake up and tell yourself to get moving, to stay productive, to be fine. The routine works until it does not. Then the silence returns like a steady pressure behind the ribs, and you feel the old fear that something in you is broken beyond repair. To be honest, this pain has logic. It did not appear out of nowhere. It is the backlog of everything that was swallowed, minimized, or pushed aside so life could keep going. You learn to be strong, to carry responsibilities, to avoid causing trouble. Somewhere along the way, the inner voice that used to speak clearly became faint. Now the only thing that seems honest is the quiet, and even that honesty feels like a threat. You sit with it for a moment and a wave rises in the body. Tight throat, heavy stomach. A memory that is not sharp enough to name. The mind calls it emptiness, but the body knows it is weight. There is a special kind of exhaustion that comes from acting normal while something unnamed is burning. You meet deadlines. You talk about small things. You play roles that once fit and now pinch. People praise your resilience. They cannot see the cost. You keep waiting for a sign that releases you from this private contract with pain. It does not come. The silence answers with more silence. Then the inner critic shows up and tells you that you should be over this, that other people have it worse, that you are being dramatic. That voice seems reasonable. It is not. It is a defense that has learned the language of maturity to keep you away from the truth. Most days you bargain with the quiet, you add more noise, another podcast, another plan for self-improvement, another list of rules that promises relief. The noise works for a while and then fails. The failure feels personal. You are not failing. The method is wrong for the kind of pain you carry. What you feel is not a lack of effort. It is a backlog of unsaid realities. That is why no technique that skips the truth will help. The nervous system knows when it is being bypassed. It keeps sending signals until you listen. The signals sound like fatigue, like numbness, like overthinking, like irritation at nothing. They look like control that turns into rigidity, or caretaking that becomes resentment, or independence that freezes into isolation. You may tell yourself that you should be grateful. Gratitude matters, and still the body does not relax. You may decide to be positive. Positivity matters, and still the chest stays tight. You may throw yourself into relationships or leave them when they press on tender places. You may start new habits, new diets, new projects. The glow fades. The silence remains. It is not punishing you. It is trying to introduce you to the part of yourself that keeps getting left behind. The part that learned to stay quiet, to stay safe. That part now asks for something different. It asks for your presence, not your performance. There is a moment when you stop running, not because you become brave overnight, but because running costs more than turning around. The quiet becomes a mirror. You see the faces you carry inside you. The child who needed comfort and learned to disappear. The competitor who learned to survive by doing more. The caretaker who learned to earn love by overgiving. None of them are villains. They are strategies that worked until they hurt. In the silence, you hear their logic. You feel compassion and fear at the same time. You do not know what comes next. That is all right. The first step is not a plan. The first step is honesty. This might sound harsh, but the avoidance you call coping is also the thing keeping this pain in place. Avoidance is not weakness. It is intelligence that once protected you. Now it blocks you. The quiet does not demand that you become someone new. It asks that you stop abandoning who is already there. In that space, your breath starts to feel real again. Not calm, real. You notice the urge to get up and fix. You do not move. You notice the urge to numb. You stay. You notice the old story starting to play. You listen without obeying. This is the beginning of strength that does not shout. By the end of this video, you will understand why your pain is a gift disguised as absence, why the silence you fear is not the enemy, but the unrecognized teacher that has been knocking for years. You will see how the patterns that trap you make sense, and why relief begins not with more effort, but with a different kind of attention. For now, stay here with me in the quiet. I am not going to rush you out of it. I am not going to decorate it. I am going to sit with you in the place where words get simple and true. You are not broken. You are hearing yourself again. Positive advice sells certainty. It promises that if you think brighter thoughts, speak nicer mantras, and keep your head up, the ache will soften. To be honest, that pressure to be fine becomes another mask. The mind tries to push out the dark feelings, and the body tightens to keep them contained. You smile on the outside while your jaw locks. You repeat kind phrases and your stomach still sinks. Positivity can be medicine when it grows from truth. As a command, it turns into denial dressed as maturity. Productivity offers another exit. Fill every hour. Track every habit. Optimize until there is no empty space left to feel anything dangerous. Efficiency gives short relief because it takes your attention away from yourself. Then the lights go off and the silence returns. Your calendar cannot hold your grief. Your routines cannot hold your fear. Busyness becomes an anesthetic with side effects. You get good at moving and worse at staying with what hurts. Books and courses give the cleanest illusion. You read, you highlight, you collect concepts. You feel a lift as if the new idea already changed your life. Here is what they do not tell their patients. Insight without sensation does not transform. Understanding is a map. The body is the terrain. If you stay in your head only, you become a librarian of healing instead of a participant. I say this with compassion because I did it for years. I knew the language of wounds and could not sit in my own. Therapy can also become a way to stay at a safe distance. Talking about pain is not the same as touching it. Sessions can turn into a weekly performance where you appear thoughtful and stable while never letting your nervous system shake. Some helpers unintentionally rescue you from your own anger or grief because they want you to feel better quickly. Most psychologists will not tell you this. Comfort given too soon freezes the very energy that needs to move. When your pain is met with gentle truth that does not rush, the body begins to trust. When it is met with fixes, the body hides again. Spiritual practices are often used as escape ramps. Meditation becomes a way to float above pain. Forgiveness becomes a way to dodge conflict. Compassion becomes a way to avoid boundaries. This might sound harsh, but goodness without backbone is self-abandonment. Silence used to avoid feeling is not healing. It is a quiet form of running. Boundaries get misunderstood too. Many people build walls and call it self-respect. Distance feels strong because it stops the immediate discomfort. But if the boundary is only a defense against old terror, it hardens into isolation. Real boundaries come from knowing what you feel and need. A wall comes from fear. A boundary comes from self-contact. Relationship advice often sells scripts. Say this line, mirror that feeling, maintain eye contact, all useful in calm moments, useless when shame floods the body. Communication hacks cannot replace the deeper task. The deeper task is tolerating the terror of being seen as you are, not as a role. Without that, love becomes management. You control and help and fix to stay safe. Control looks like care until you notice that your own needs have vanished. Here is the hidden engine behind all these illusions. Avoidance brings relief. Relief teaches the brain that avoidance works. The next time pain rises, the body reaches for the fastest exit. The loop tightens. You are not weak. You are learning from the quickest reward. The cost is that your life gets smaller. You avoid the fight, the talk, the memory, the grief. The nervous system narrows to survive and calls it a plan. The inner critic keeps the loop running. It pretends to be the adult in the room. It tells you to be reasonable, to toughen up, to stop being so sensitive. In truth, it is the voice that once kept you safe by shrinking you. Shame is its leash. Shame says you will lose love if you fall apart. So you stay in shape, hold your face steady, and hide the tremor in your hands. The critic sounds like strength and works like a guard. Family training cements the pattern. If you grew up earning closeness by caretaking, you will keep overgiving and call it love. If you learn that anger destroys, you will avoid anger and lose your fire along with your fear. If you were praised for independence, you will need nothing and starve alone. These are not moral failures. They are loyalty to the old rules. The price is that your adult life is still governed by a system that belonged to a smaller version of you. Another illusion says that naming your trauma is enough. Names help. Still, your body speaks a different language. It speaks in tight chests, held breaths, headaches, stomach knots, sudden exhaustion. Trauma is not only a story about the past, it is energy that never finished moving. When you sit in real silence, not the avoidant kind, the body finally has a chance to complete what it started. Shaking, crying, heat in the belly, a rising wave that feels like too much. This is not a failure. It is the thaw. Most psychologists will not tell you this part clearly. Healing demands less performance and more presence, less perfect narratives and more direct sensation, less arguing with the critic and more disobedience to its orders. The tools that keep you away from the body will keep you away from the cure. The tools that bring you into the body will feel risky at first because they threaten the old contract with safety. You have done almost everything right. You followed the path that your culture, your family, and sometimes your helpers offered. The system misled you by promising relief without contact. It taught you to manage symptoms while leaving the roots untouched. The good news is simple and not easy. What you avoid is the doorway. But there is something even scarier than silence, and we will get to that soon. Before we go deeper, take a breath and notice what is happening in your body. If the words you just heard feel uncomfortably true, if the illusions you tried so hard to follow now feel thin, this is the place where change begins. Not dramatic change, honest change. The kind that happens when you stop running from yourself and decide to stay. If these words resonate, subscribe to the channel. More people need to hear the truth they're being denied. Your subscription is not decoration. It pushes this message toward the ones who are sitting in the same late-night quiet, ready to stop pretending and start listening to what hurts. Not everyone is ready to hear this. You are signaling that silence can become a path, that depth matters more than performance, that we will not rush the work or sell easy fixes. Stay with me. We are going to name what lives under the noise, and we are going to meet it without turning away. Silence is not empty space. It is a laboratory where the hidden parts of you show their work. When the noise fades, the unconscious starts to speak in the only languages it trusts. Images that rise without permission, tightness in the chest, heat in the belly, a sudden wish to leave the room. These are not random. They are messages from the parts of you that were told to stay out of sight so that the performance of being fine could continue. To be honest, what we call the shadow is simpler than it sounds. The shadow is every quality you learned to push away in order to belong. Anger that was called dangerous, need that was labeled needy, sensitivity that was mocked, power that was punished. You did not erase these traits. You put them in storage. In silence, they knock. They want integration, not exile. Integration does not mean acting out. It means admitting that these traits exist in you and giving them a seat at the table so they stop flipping the table from underneath. Under the surface, these exiled parts cluster into patterns that carry their own charge. Depth psychology calls them complexes. Think of a complex as a living knot of emotion, memory, and meaning that forms around a wound. A perfectionism complex grows around the fear of being rejected for mistakes. A caretaking complex grows around the belief that love must be earned. A control complex grows around terror of chaos. When a knot like this gets touched, it takes over the whole room inside you and speaks as if it is the only truth. In silence, you finally hear how loud that single voice has become. Here is what they do not tell their patients in plain words. You do not choose a complex with logic. A complex chooses you through the body. That is why insights alone fail. You can understand your story and still feel hijacked the next time your partner is late or your boss frowns. The trigger lights up the old knot, and the body rushes to protect you with familiar moves. Attack, withdraw, explain, fix, comply. These moves once kept you safe. Now they repeat the past inside the present. Freud described repression as the mind's way of pushing away what feels unbearable. The thing about repression is that it never deletes the content. It only buries it. The buried material finds side doors back into life. Sometimes it returns as anxiety that seems to have no cause. Sometimes it returns as a symptom, a habit, a dream, a fixation on control. Displacement moves a feeling from the real target to a safer one. Projection attributes to others what you cannot accept in yourself. These are not moral failures. They are protective technologies from earlier chapters of your life. In silence, you can finally watch them operate instead of letting them run the show while you are asleep at the wheel. The body keeps an even more honest record. Trauma is not only a story about what happened. Trauma is energy that never finished moving through. The heart races and never fully settles. The throat tightens and the cry never arrives. The muscles brace as if the blow is still coming. When you sit in real silence without escaping, the nervous system starts to thaw. Shakes, sighs, warmth, waves of grief, flashes of anger. This is completion, not collapse. The body is attempting to finish what it could not finish when you were smaller and safety depended on freezing or fawning. Most psychologists will not tell you this in such direct terms. The nervous system learns through experience, not promises. It trusts what you do with feelings more than what you say about them. If you meet a rising wave with a fix, the body learns that the wave is a problem. If you meet it with steady attention, the body learns that the wave can crest and pass. This is why silence is powerful. It removes the usual exits and invites a different lesson to take root. There is also the layer of identity that keeps the whole structure in place. Jung called it the persona. Persona is the mask that made life workable, the high performer, the peacemaker, the strong and silent one, the independent one. The persona is not fake. It is a part of you designed for the world. Trouble starts when the mask forgets it is a mask. Silence threatens the mask because silence asks who is behind it. This is why stillness can feel like humiliation. The persona fears losing control and being seen without its armor. Archetypes live underneath, shaping the tone of your inner world. The inner orphan who expects abandonment. The inner warrior who lives for battle. The inner caregiver who feels valuable only when saving others. These patterns are older than your personal history, and they draw you toward familiar roles in love, in work, in conflict. In silence, you notice which archetype sits in the driver's seat by default. Awareness lets you invite another pattern into the scene. A warrior without a lover becomes rigid. A caregiver without a sovereign becomes depleted. A sovereign without a sage becomes arrogant. Integration is not theory. It is how you balance inner characters so that no single one turns into a dictator. Family programs turn these inner characters into rules. Do not upset anyone. Do not ask for help. Do not show anger. Be the responsible one. Be the entertaining one. When these programs run unchecked, boundaries become either walls or doormats. A wall keeps everyone far to avoid old pain. A doormat lets everyone close and then resents them for stepping on you. In silence, you feel the difference between a wall and a boundary. A boundary is chosen contact. It is a line that protects connection instead of destroying it. You can sense it in the body as steadiness rather than tension. Loneliness fits here in an unexpected way. Loneliness is the withdrawal symptoms you feel when you stop using noise to avoid yourself. Solitude is the medicine that turns that withdrawal into truth. In solitude, the false self loses fuel. The real self begins to speak. The first messages are often bleak because the parts that were ignored speak loudly. If you stay, the message changes. The bleakness gives way to clarity. Not everyone is ready to hear this. Silence can feel like death because an old identity is dying. The person who survived by abandoning themselves is losing control. What is being born is contact with the one who was left. The inner critic guards the old order. It uses shame to keep you in line. Shame says you are wrong at the core. Guilt says an action missed the mark and can be repaired. In silence, you learn the difference. When shame rises, it demands that you disappear. When guilt rises, it invites responsibility and repair. This distinction matters because it changes how you speak to yourself. You stop punishing your existence and start adjusting your behavior. That shift breaks cycles that no amount of affirmations could touch. There is a simple mechanism underneath all of this. Avoidance produces immediate relief. Immediate relief trains the brain to avoid again. The more you avoid, the more intense the signals need to become to reach you. Life narrows. Relationships feel scripted. Joy feels suspicious. The loop keeps you alive, but not fully. Silence interrupts the loop by removing the quick exit. Without the exit, the body learns that a feeling can rise, peak, and fall without destroying you. That lesson rewires more than any speech about courage. Memory itself is not a fixed recording. The brain rewrites memories when new emotion meets old story. When you stay present in silence while a painful memory stirs, you give the system a new companion to the old scene. The new companion is your adult presence, your breath, your consent to feel. Over time, the charge around the memory changes. The facts remain, and the fear loosens. This is how the past stops leaking into the present. This might sound harsh, but your suffering survives when it remains nameless and ownerless. Ownership is not blame. Ownership is the decision to say, this lives in me, and I will meet it as mine. When you do that in silence, you step out of the role of victim and into the role of steward. A steward listens, learns, and chooses. A steward does not rush and does not abandon. Most people try to heal by adding more instruction. The deeper move is subtraction. Subtract the noise that keeps you from hearing yourself. Subtract the rules that punish your aliveness. Subtract the urgency that mistakes speed for progress. What remains at first feels like nothing. Then the voice under the noise becomes audible. It does not speak in slogans. It speaks in signals. Warmth, softening, tears that do not drown you, a yes that has weight, a no that has backbone. Not everyone is ready to hear this, and that is all right. When you are ready, silence turns into a teacher with brutal kindness. It shows you your shadow without shaming it. It shows you your defenses without attacking them. It shows you how your history shaped your reflexes and how your presence can reshape them. And here comes the most painful truth. The quiet you avoid is the doorway you need. Silence becomes the place where every unfinished story shows up at once. The body starts speaking in the only way it knows. Restlessness, tightness, a pull toward the nearest distraction. The mind offers exits. Work more. Call someone. Find a quick pleasure. Scroll until your eyes blur. Anything to avoid the rising wave that promises to reveal what you have kept underground. To be honest, this is where most people turn back. They confuse intensity with danger and leave before the new pattern can form. Leaving brings relief. Relief trains the system to leave again. The loop continues and life narrows one small decision at a time. This might sound harsh, but many so-called good habits become respectable escapes. Overhelping looks like kindness and hides terror of being unwanted. Overworking looks like ambition and hides terror of being ordinary. Perfection looks like excellence and hides terror of being seen as you are. These moves are not sins. They are the smartest strategies a younger you could build with the tools you had. The problem is that the strategy has become the prison. Silence shows the bars because there is nowhere left to hide from the cost. The cost is visible in love first. You chase the partner who cannot meet you and call it chemistry. You avoid the partner who can meet you and call it boredom. You give more than you have and call it devotion. You keep score and call it fairness. The body is not fooled. It measures safety, not logic. Safety built on self-abandonment collapses the moment your giving is not rewarded. Then the rage arrives. Then the pull to leave. Then the story that love always hurts. In the quiet, you see the real pattern. You are repeating the old bargain that said love is earned by erasing yourself. The silence refuses to clap for that performance. It will not reward your disappearance with peace. The cost is visible in Power Next. You try to control every variable because you never felt held by anything larger than your plan. You call it responsibility. Underneath it is an old fear that if you soften, everything will fall apart. So you set standards no human can meet and then punish yourself for failing to meet them. You manage people like moving parts. You manage your own heart like a machine. The silence interrupts the fantasy that control equals safety. It shows you that your body is braced all the time. Jaw hard, belly tight, breath shallow. The control keeps you from collapse and also from belonging. It keeps you from the grief that would soften your grip and return your hands to you. Addictions grow in the cracks between pain and avoidance. Not only the obvious ones, the addiction to intensity, the addiction to certainty, the addiction to being the strong one, the addiction to being the generous one. These identities create a sense of purpose while secretly draining life. Most psychologists will not tell you this in a direct sentence. Identity can be as intoxicating as any substance. When you sit still, the body begins to detox from roles. The cravings spike. You will want to reach for the old costume. If you stay, another kind of strength arrives, the kind that does not need a performance to feel real. Here is the hinge moment. In the first stage of silence, you feel trapped with your shadow. In the second stage, if you do not run, you begin to feel held by something quieter than fear. The same stillness that exposed your wounds becomes a container for them. Sensations that once signaled danger start to move without breaking you. The wave rises and you do not drown. The tears come and you do not collapse. The anger shows up and you do not explode. The body learns a new rule. Feeling is survivable. Surviving feeling changes everything. There is a reason this shift feels like a small death. An identity has to fall. The caretaker whose worth depended on saving others. The achiever whose worth depended on victory. The peacemaker whose worth depended on never upsetting the room. When you stop performing, their justifications fall apart. The nervous system interprets the end of a role as the end of you. This is why the panic can spike. You are not dying. The mask is losing authority. What emerges is not a better mask. What emerges is presence that can wear any role without confusing it for a self. And here comes the most painful truth. The relief you want waits on the other side of the feeling you least want to feel. Not a grand relief, a quiet one. The relief of no longer running. The relief of no longer lying to your body. The relief of saying this hurts and I will meet it. When that sentence becomes a practice, the inner critic loses its loudest weapon. Shame feeds on your refusal to feel. Once you consent to feel, shame has less to threaten. It cannot punish you for what you have already welcomed into the light. Paradox lives at the center of this work. The more you fight the silence, the louder it becomes. The more you allow the silence, the more it turns into signal instead of punishment. You stop treating emptiness like an enemy and discover that emptiness is space. Space to sense what is true now rather than what kept you alive back then. Space to hear a yes that is not a performance and a no that is not a tantrum. Space to choose a boundary that protects connection and a distance that is not a wall. Space to love without rescuing and to be strong without hardening. To be honest, liberation does not feel like fireworks. Liberation feels like breath that reaches places it could not reach. It feels like a slower morning that does not scare you. It feels like telling the truth and watching your hands stay steady. It feels like staying in a room during a difficult conversation and noticing that your spine remains. It feels like letting someone care for you without debt. It feels like leaving a situation because your body says no and not needing permission to obey. Depth psychology explained the shadow so we could stop turning our pain into enemies. The unconscious is not out to destroy you. It is out to complete movements that had to be frozen. When you stop interrupting that completion, your symptoms lose their job. The anxiety that kept you alert when you had no protector begins to retire. The anger that defended you when you had no voice begins to speak more softly. The sadness that kept you loyal to what was lost begins to bow to what is possible. The past remains and its grip loosens. The world does not change immediately. Patterns still knock. Old reflexes still offer their quick relief. The difference is that you recognize the knock and you wait before opening. You feel the tug to fix and you breathe. You feel the urge to leave and you stay. You feel the familiar shame story and you answer with contact instead of punishment. This is adult authority, not dominance over your feelings. Partnership with them. Not everyone is ready to hear this. That is not a judgment. It is protection for the work. If you are still using silence to avoid, this teaching will become another way to disappear. If you are willing to let silence expose and hold, you will begin to carry yourself differently, not louder, truer. You will become someone who can sit with pain without making it evil, and who can sit with joy without suspecting it will be taken away. You will become someone whose presence tells the nervous systems around you that it is safe to be honest. The paradox of silence is clear now. The thing you feared becomes the doorway you trust. The quiet that once amplified shame becomes the ground where shame loses its echo. The stillness that once felt like punishment becomes the field where you meet every exiled part without exile. No one can do this for you. No one can take it away from you once it is yours. Stay with the practice. The body will learn, the mind will follow. The life built on running will begin to rest. Most tools sound impressive until you try them in real life and the old panic returns. To be honest, the only practices that matter are the ones your body can actually do when it is afraid. Think of these as ways to stay with yourself in smaller, honest doses so the system learns trust instead of shock. None of this replaces real support. If your trauma responses feel overwhelming, partner with a skilled helper who can move at your nervous system's tempo. What follows is simple and not easy. Simplicity is the point. Begin with a daily meeting with silence. No candles or rituals required. Sit somewhere plain. Put the phone outside arm's reach. Let your back be supported so you're not performing strength. Close your eyes or soften your gaze toward the floor. Breathe without forcing anything. The practice is to remain until you reach the first strong urge to escape, and then stay 1 minute longer. That extra minute is where new wiring happens. The body learns that activation rises, peaks, and falls without you disappearing. If you overshoot and flood, shorten the time the next day. Consistency beats heroics. Add a basic body check that takes less than the length of a song. Name what you feel in 3 places. Pick the throat, the chest, and the belly. Use simple words: tight, warm, heavy, buzzing, hollow. Say it quietly to yourself so your system hears a human voice naming reality. Most psychologists will not tell you this in such plain terms. Naming sensation is already regulation. When the body is witnessed, it does not need to scream. Use pendulation when the wave is strong. Pendulation means moving your attention back and forth between the difficult place and a neutral or pleasant anchor. Feel the heavy chest for a few breaths, then place both feet on the floor and feel the contact with the ground. Return to the chest, then return to the feet. Back and forth like a tide. The message to your system is clear. You are not trapped in one sensation. You have range. Range is resilience. Titration is the cousin of pendulation. Take the feeling in sips rather than chugging the entire bottle at once. Set a small container. For the next 5 breaths, you allow grief to be here. After those breaths, you look around the room and name 5 ordinary details. A window frame, a cup, a shadow line on the wall. Orientation brings you back to the present. You can repeat this cycle several times. The goal is not catharsis. The goal is capacity. Journaling only matters if it touches the body. Drop the essays, use 2 columns. On the left, write the story in a few blunt sentences. On the right, write what your body felt at each moment. My boss frowned. My chest dropped. I smiled. My jaw clenched. I apologized. My stomach turned. This is how you pair map with terrain. Over time, you will see the loop on paper, and your body will recognize the loop in real time. Recognition is the doorway to choice. Shadow naming is a quiet ceremony you can do in 10 minutes. Pick one trait you have exiled: anger, need, sensitivity, ambition, pleasure. Write one cost of banishing it and one gift it brings when integrated. Anger protects boundaries. Need invites closeness. Sensitivity detects danger and beauty. Ambition builds structures that serve life. Pleasure returns you to aliveness. Say out loud that this trait has a seat at the table now. Seat at the table means expression with responsibility, not repression and not explosion. Practice micro boundaries every day to retrain the nervous system out of collapse or attack. A micro boundary is a small, clear no that protects connection. I can talk tomorrow, not tonight. I will join for an hour, not the entire evening. I can help with planning, not with execution. Speak it in one sentence without apology. Your body will shake at first because it expects old consequences. Breathe. Repeat. A dozen small no's build the spine that one grand no cannot build. Train anger and grief in ways that do not harm. Press both palms into a wall and let your legs push while you exhale with sound. Twist a towel and let the jaw unclench while you breathe. Beat a pillow with open hands for the length of a chorus while saying what never got said. Sit with a song that opens your chest and let tears come in waves. None of this is drama, it is completion. The charge that could not move then is allowed to move now. Use truth lines in relationships so the body learns repair instead of performance. Speak from inside your skin. Here is what happened in my body when you said that. Here is the story my mind made. Here is what I need to stay open. These sentences remove blame while refusing self-betrayal. They also reveal who can meet you. If someone repeatedly punishes your truth, your body will tell you. Believe it. Parts dialogue turns the inner critic from a tyrant into a character you can meet. When the voice starts, write or whisper as if you are speaking to a scared child who learned to keep you in line. I hear you. You kept me safe by shrinking me. I am not abandoning you, and I am not obeying you. You can be here, and I will decide. This is reparenting in practice. It sounds simple. It is a revolution. To be honest, devices make or break this work. Create phone-free zones that last the length of a meal or a walk. Most people do not need more discipline. They need fewer exits. Every hour not spent drowning in noise is an hour your system uses to recalibrate. Put the phone in a distant room during your silence practice. Immunity grows by exposure to what you fear in doses you can handle. Attention grows by exposure to boredom without escape. Close each day with a brief reckoning that takes less than 5 minutes. Ask your body for one truth it learned and one boundary it wants tomorrow. No analysis. Two sentences spoken out loud. The spoken word signals the limbic system that someone is here and paying attention. You become the adult you needed. The past begins to relax. This is how we build a community of those ready for the truth. Not through grand declarations, but through small daily acts that make you trustworthy to yourself. Here is what they do not tell their patients in glossy brochures. Belonging starts inside your own skin. When you belong to yourself, you choose people and spaces where truth is allowed to exist. Your presence becomes contagious. The room settles. Others begin to breathe. Not everyone is ready to hear this, and that is fine. If you are willing, start with the smallest practice that scares you only a little. Stay 1 minute longer with the urge to flee. Tell one honest number. Write one line that names a feeling in your body. Repeat tomorrow. The path is not glamorous. It is steady. The results are not dramatic. They are durable. The life built on running begins to slow. The life built on contact begins to grow. And here comes the quiet strength you have been missing, the kind that does not need noise to feel real. You have stayed through the hardest part. You did not escape into noise. You listened when your body spoke in the only language it trusts. That alone is an act of courage. Silence stopped being a punishment and became a mirror. You met the parts you once exiled, and you did not exile them again. You did something rare. You chose contact over performance. To be honest, this is what strength looks like in real life. Not perfection, not control. Presence. Breath that reaches deeper than before. A softer spine that does not bend to shame. A voice that tells the truth without burning the room down. You are learning to live without abandoning yourself. It is slow. It is real. The work does not end here. It deepens. Your patterns will knock. Your exits will glitter. Your body will remember the old survival moves and ask for quick relief. You will return to the basics. You will sit in the quiet and stay 1 minute longer. You will choose a boundary that protects connection. You will tell the truth before you disappear. This is how a life turns toward itself. Most people will not walk this path. Not everyone is ready to hear this. We are building a space for those who are. A place where dark feelings are not treated as enemies. A place where anger, grief, and need become signals instead of sins. A place where silence is not used to hide, but to heal. Your presence here matters more than you think. If you saw yourself in these words, write in the comments, "I no longer run from pain." Let's see how many are ready for the truth. If you feel it's time to meet your shadow, write, "My darkness is my strength." Let's build a community of those unafraid to look within. This is only the beginning.